حاوية ولا العجل سفال الكوكم كفولكم ولا كرن صعد سفال الكوكم
After 2 months of intense fighting on the outskirts of Keren, the rule of fascist Italy over Eritrea came to an end in the spring of 1941. In the years that followed, and capitalizing on the newfound liberties afforded by the British administration that succeeded the Italians, the people of Eritrea began to articulate diverse perspectives on the question of self-determination and to engage in political organization. In this dynamic social and political landscape, Keren emerged as a central hub for the patriotic movement advocating for Eritrea's independence. Many prominent figures of the early nationalist movement, including Ibrahim Sultan and various other leaders in the struggle for independence, originated from Keren. During those eventful and at times turbulent years, the people of Keren, like most Eritreans, remained unwavering in their quest for independence, firmly rejecting both Ethiopian ambitions to annex Eritrea and British plans to divide the country between Ethiopia and Sudan. In 1955, Asfaha Wolde Mikhail, the fiercely pro-Ethiopian leader of the Eritrean government during the Federation period, referred to Keren as a glass of poison that taints Eritrea. A few years later, he famously commented that Eritrea's nationalist politics is mixed in Keren and baked in Asmara. The momentous political activity of the 1940s culminated in the Federation Act of 1952, which gave Eritrea autonomy under the Ethiopian crown. It was a compromise settlement based on a 1950 United Nations resolution. However, Ethiopia did not wait long to begin stripping away the foundations of the Federation one piece at a time, and ultimately dissolving the Federation and fully annexing Eritrea. Meanwhile, in the midst of this charged political atmosphere, a new generation began to emerge, one that approached the world with keen observation and a thirst for knowledge. They eagerly engaged in conversations, enrolled in schools, and drew lessons from their surroundings. By early 1958, students in Keren schools were not just attending classes. They were gathering to share ideas and devise strategies. These young individuals, most still fresh-faced teens, were driven by a profound love for their homeland and a steadfast determination to stand against Ethiopian dominance. Their passionate spirit marked a hopeful shift as they began to envision a future shaped by their dreams and aspirations. The first significant confrontation took place on March 3, 1958, when the increasingly repressive regime detained Yassin Fitwarari Mohammed Ismail, one of the pro-independence young activists in the city. When his friends, Adam Akte and Afa Drar, attempted to secure his release from the police station, they too were thrown into jail. This sparked a powerful wave of protests among the city's youth and students.
والله عمل السياسي أنا بدأته سنة 1958 في بدايته، وده كان مجموعة 7 نفر اتفقنا قلنا إريتريا حيدموها وبالتالي نعمل جمعية. 2 كنا فيهم طلبة، الآخرين ناس كبار هم عندهم تجربة. من الطلبة اللي كنا أنا ومحمد سعيد عنطة حسا في أستراليا الجنوب. فقررنا بقى مظاهرة تكون يوم السبت، لأن يوم السبت في كرن يوم سوق، كان الشعب من برا كله يجي عشان يساهم معنا الشعب. هذه المظاهرة يوم 3/3/58 أنا قلت.
Months later, another pivotal event unfolded following the day the Eritrean flag was lowered for the final time on November 14, 1958. The Ethiopian authorities had already dismantled many of the symbols of Eritrean sovereignty, such as replacing Arabic and Tigrinya with the Ethiopian language, Amharic. But abolishing the Eritrean flag was a grave development that sent shockwaves across the nation. Spontaneous protests erupted in major cities, with citizens expressing their outrage over the decision. In Keren, students gathered at the police headquarters, joined by other local residents. The situation escalated to such a degree that Colonel Zaramariam Azazi, the deputy police chief, hurriedly arrived from Asmara, flanked by his troops, and tried to convince the protesters to disband, but without success. Not long after that, the police responded aggressively, injuring several protesters, including 2 young students, Omar Muhammad Ali and Abdurazak Ali Saleh, as well as another Keren resident named Muhammad Saleh Humad. Muhammad Omar Yahya and Muhammad Saeed Antata were among the student leaders of the demonstration, beside other youth activists in the city.
تشعو جزء ناي demonstration تجبروه بزحات يوم نيروم بعد محمد سعيد عن تطا نيروم عالمين يوم كلهم تم عبد دكاكين بنيتات قال الدربيوم سابو تتعزم شعو بزحات يوم نيروم تشعو البانديرا كورت كروت.
Waldi Yusuf Amar, just 12 years old at the time, recalls that day with a heavy heart. He vividly remembers walking home from school and noticing the solitary Ethiopian flag flying at the provincial administration building, the Commissariatio. The Eritrean flag was starkly absent. The sight of the municipal workers struggling to saw off the empty flagpole is still fresh in his memory. 2 of the leaders of the 1958 student protests, Adam Akte and Mohammed Saeed Antata, became, alongside fellow Keren youth Ibrahim Idris Blenai, founding members of the Eritrean Liberation Front, also known as the ELF, in 1960. In addition to those mentioned, some of the key figures of the youth and student movement in Keren at the time included
Saleh Iyai, Ali Muhammad Saleh, Jami Abdurrahman, Norai Habona, Usman Zorom, and at a later stage, Dobrom Tulu, Abdullah Suleiman, Samuel Daniel, and others.
Teachers played a major role in shaping the mindset and sense of patriotism in their students, reflects Ibrahim Gadam, who was in 7th grade during the protests of 1958. He remembers in particular the impact of his teachers Saleh Muhammad Mahmoud and Siyum Nagasi. Waldi Yusuf Amar shares how Memher Siyum Nagasi instilled awareness in his students through storytelling and providing access to rare books. His teacher's words on the day after the Eritrean flag was taken down are still etched in Amar's memory. Yesterday, our flag was lowered for good, Memher Siyum had told them solemnly. Our Eritrean pride has been taken away. Tragically, Memher Siyum lost his life when an army vehicle struck him while he was walking along the streets of Asmara in the 1970s. 1958 also witnessed the birth of the Eritrean Liberation Movement, ELM, a crucial development in the evolution of Eritrean nationhood. Muhammad Omar Yahya, one of the leaders of the student movement in Keren, was among those who joined this newly formed underground organization shortly after its formation. However, he was soon arrested along with 9 other ELM members in Asmara and spent the next 2 years in prison. During this period, the Eritrean Liberation Front, ELF, came into existence, and Hamid Awate announced the beginning of the armed struggle for independence. Upon his release from prison, Muhammad Omar Yahya was assigned a critical mission: to transport 2 rifles which had been secretly donated by loyal police members to Awate. With the help of Mahmoud Mohammed Saleh, a teacher from Agordat, and later a prominent figure in the revolution, he met Awate in early 1962 and successfully delivered the vital supplies. The following year, he fully committed to the armed struggle. By the early 1960s, as the armed struggle began to take shape, a new wave of students in Keren stepped up to take charge. While many from the previous generation had either gone into exile, joined the fight for independence, or pursued their studies in Asmara, Mahmoud Janjar and his peers rekindled the student organization efforts. Although Janjar soon took up arms himself, he maintained contact with the student body, especially with those like Mikhail Gaber and Wolde Yusuf Amar, who were now in Asmara pursuing their education and expanding their activism to the nation's capital. Meanwhile, in Keren, emerging leaders like Idris Ibrahim, better known as Idris Quresh, and Mohammed Sheikh Abdul Jalil took over and were crucial in bringing in fresh recruits, notably welcoming the first female members. Among these pioneering female students were
Saadiya Mahmoud Aman, Fatma Saeed Lahtat, Madhan Ferdinando, and Fatma Saaduddin.
As students intensified their activism in Keren, some who had moved to Asmara for their secondary education played a key role in reigniting pro-independence enthusiasm in the capital and amplifying the message of the newly started armed struggle. They became crucial links between the fighters in the field and the student population in Asmara. Among such student leaders were Mikhail Gaber and Wolde Yusuf Amar, who, along with fellow students from Asmara and beyond, established a powerful student movement in the city. From organizing fellow students to distributing revolutionary pamphlets and adorning the streets with hand-drawn posters and graffiti, they left an indelible impact. This was particularly evident during the landmark protests of 1961 and 1965 in Asmara. Once this group of student leaders moved to Addis Ababa for university studies, another wave of students, influenced by Keren, emerged to continue the fight. Tesfaye Tekle, who later became a prominent leader in the ELF and served in the Eritrean government post-independence, alongside Andom Ogbamariam, who became a doctor with the Eritrean People's Liberation Front, EPLF, and later a Director General at the Eritrean Ministry of Health, were among those leading the student movement in Asmara in the second half of the 1960s. Jimeh Abdullah, a former football star from Keren, better known as Jimeh, recalls a significant school day in 1967 when, following a tip-off, a police car arrived at Haile Selassie First Secondary School to arrest the student leaders. Seeing the vehicle enter the school grounds, Tesfaye Tekle escaped through a window and left town that same day to join the armed struggle. Meanwhile, Andom, who was in a different classroom, was ambushed and arrested. After searching his home, the police found subversive literature and a list of names, which they promptly proceeded to round up.
Napal, and in areas of Afabat, there was a cluster bomb which explodes in the air and which has an extensive blast.
Generally, the MiGs carry 2 of these cluster bombs. Every MiG has 2.
Jimeh and Tewelde Gabre, both from Keren, were among 16 students apprehended. They spent 3 months in a prison in Asmara before being exiled to remote areas of Ethiopia. Jimeh and Tewelde endured 3 years in Gore, southern Ethiopia, while Andom was sent to Bega Medr. Underground networks affiliated with the ELF in Keren and other cities played a crucial role in the fight for independence, much like the support from the rural population where the freedom fighters operated. Keren students were always eager to promote the revolution's goals and actively contributed to the cause. They often found ways to assist the fighters, whether it was sharing valuable information or delivering necessary supplies. Ibrahim Ukud shares a story about a time when their ELF contacts requested them to find printing paper. After searching the only local stationery store, Frangulis, without success, he turned to the school library where some stationery was kept. He approached the head librarian, Ustaz Osman Omran, and explained his need for the printing paper. In response, Mr. Omran invited Ibrahim to take what he needed from the library's supplies. Ibrahim helped himself to several reams. As he made his way out of the library, he noticed Mr. Omran's surprised but silent expression. He understood, reflects Ibrahim. Another memorable story from Ibrahim Ukud highlights the students' commitment to their cause and adds a touch of humor. At one point, Ibrahim was sent by Mahmoud Chekini, a notable revolutionary figure near Keren, to procure some highly sought-after supplies in Asmara. As he embarked on the journey early that morning, he wasn't quite prepared for the biting cold that awaited him in Asmara. He chuckles while recalling how he shivered in his thin shirt as he waited for the store to open. A man sweeping the pavement noticed him and asked, "Oh, poor child, don't you have proper clothes? Where are you from, anyway?" Ibrahim replied, "From Keren," prompting the man to draw attention from those passing by as he exclaimed, "Look at this guy from Keren. He's nearly freezing to death." Ibrahim Ukud's peers were, among others, Saleh Kekia, who would later become a senior official in the EPLF and serve as a government minister, and Osman Maibatot. They were succeeded by another group of activists spearheaded by such figures as Johannes Ferdinando Drar and Mohammed Nur Baho. That also included some who would play significant roles in the future of Eritrean politics, such as Ahmed Haj Ali, later a government minister and ambassador, and Abdulkader Raji. Johannes, who was recruited to the cause by Mohammed Nur Nabarai and Ukud, particularly recalls the courage and leadership qualities of Saleh Kekia. Johannes himself subsequently took on the task of expanding the underground network in Keren, bringing in, among others, Haileab Andu, another future leadership member in the revolution. During that period, Johannes notes, there were as many as 5 student groups, carefully organized to ensure confidentiality and safety. One of these groups was a female-only unit led by Maryam Ali. Johannes shared the various ways in which students were actively supporting the struggle for independence. In a significant effort, they organized, in batches, the secret shipment of 200 pieces of green khaki uniforms for the fighters, collaborating closely with fellow city residents like Idris Asheki, Idris Zemzemi, and Osman Semaral-ul, 2 of whom were tailors. They also gathered and shipped other crucial items like medicine and canvas material. Johannes vividly recalls a time when they coordinated the development of a set of films at the local photo studio run by Mr. Shifa. Dedicated men and women from the villages around Keren played a crucial role in delivering these essential supplies, often at great personal risk. All this student activity was taking place at a time of absolute terror overseen by the Ethiopian authorities, of which Keren endured a substantial share. In a shocking display of brutality, the Ethiopian army publicly showcased the bodies of Eritrean freedom fighters killed in battle. Mahmoud Genjer, the former student organizer who had become the political commissioner of the second zone around Keren, was one of the 6 fighters whose body was displayed in the public square in 1966. The goal was to strike fear in the hearts of the people, but this gruesome practice had the opposite effect. Instead of quelling dissent, it ignited a fire of anger and resistance, particularly among the youth and students of Keren. Indeed, many joined the armed struggle as a result. It had been years since Haile Selassie's government had unleashed its terror on the civilian population of Eritrea. But on November 30th and December 1st, 1970, the brutality reached a devastating peak. That fateful week, the regime's soldiers killed nearly 1,000 innocent men, women, and children in Ona and Besikdira, as well as in other nearby villages. The following day, students from various schools united with the residents of Keren to bury the victims, many of whom were unrecognizable charred remains. In the days and weeks that followed, as the city mourned its loss, a fiery rage simmered among the people, coupled with a resolve to seek justice for those innocent lives lost. Gurmai Zemikael and Bahit Abdurazak, both Keren High School students originally from Agordat, were tasked by the student union to travel to Asmara to inform their colleagues in the capital and beyond about the massacres that had taken place, and to coordinate appropriate action. As the road to Asmara was closed following a major incident in which the top commander of the Ethiopian army in Eritrea was killed by the freedom fighters, the only option left to Gurmai and Bahit was to undertake part of the journey on foot. Their determination paid off, as they completed their mission and returned to Keren a few days later. Student activity remained vibrant, even in the face of increasing repression. However, in 1973, several of the student leaders, including Idris Dafi and Yusuf Omar Alif, were exposed and arrested. They were subsequently sentenced to varying amounts of time behind bars. Mohammed Maranet, a teacher and key figure in the ELF's underground work inside Keren, received 5 years. That same year, students in Keren staged multiple strikes and walkouts, a momentum that carried over into 1974. The students had several issues on their agenda, chief among which was the demand to sit for their school-leaving matriculation exams in Keren, instead of having to travel to Asmara, a situation that had disadvantaged students from regional towns like Keren. Underpinning their activism, however, was a deep-seated resistance to the Ethiopian oppression. 1974 ushered the fall of Haile Selassie's regime and the new policy of Zemecha, which required senior high schoolers and university students all over Ethiopia to suspend their education and move to the rural areas to participate in the so-called Literacy and Development Campaign. This was received with stiff resistance from students all over Eritrea, leading to thousands of young Eritreans joining the armed struggle. Within months, the once vibrant town of Keren became eerily devoid of its young. Over the course of 3 long decades, tens of thousands of Eritreans, many of whom were former students, sacrificed their lives in the quest for a free Eritrea. An equal number of innocent civilians fell victim to Ethiopian atrocities and the broader devastation of war. The flag, a symbol that once ignited passionate protests in 1958, was once again raised at the United Nations in 1993. It is a poignant reminder that the individual who elevated it at the UN headquarters, Eritrea's ambassador, was none other than Ahmed Haj Ali, a former student activist from Keren.
تحلفني تقبي وقبت سنات تقسي لا ما تحلفني تقبي وقبت سنات تقسي من بقع تاقيه ومن يمر تنسي بالوديب التمنى تحلف النديب بالوديب التمنى حليف بيت الدنيا وبيت سنة حليف بيت الدنيا وبيت سنة حلف النديب بالوديب التمنى حليف بيت الدنيا وبيت سنة من قلة أكي تمسك مولاي أوان أسني